Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's finally done. I finally got the tumbler built. It's been a process. It's been a lot of successes and failures and ultimately the excitement of having it built. I've entitled this video The Complete Guide to Building Your Own Tumbler. And I titled it that way, and I really honestly I can't tell you every way to build a tumbler possible. A quick run through on YouTube will give you 100 different types of builds, and everyone's different, but for this sake of this video, I've really built this for 3 people in mind. And the first one being the people that have already built a tumbler and are just checking other people's builds, maybe thinking of building another one, etc. You know, like me, the DIY guy that's always looking for new ideas. The second would be people that already have their materials or already have a motor and some stuff laying around. They're just looking how to put it together to make a rotary tumbler. And the third would be the people that, they just want to be told what they need and how to put it together. And so I've tried to fit all 3 groups in. And honestly, this has been a fun little project. It's been quite the little deal. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first place to start with any build is going to be the motor. And with this one, I ended up getting an industrial sewing machine motor. And the reason being actually came from a comment of on my previous video of somebody using sewing machine motors. And I looked up and all the old school motor, electric, workshop, metal shop type guys, they keep old sewing machine motors around just for kicks and grins and to fart around with. And so I decided to give it a shot. I haven't run this long term to tell you how it's going to work through, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. I know the motor gets crazy hot. My first time running it, I ran it for a couple hours, and then I went ahead and I touched it to see if it was getting hot or not, and ended up actually burning myself. And then I went to work that night letting it run, and I just once I got into work, I realized that was a really dumb idea. I was afraid it would overheat. And it actually, by the time I got home, it had shut itself off. It was good in that now I know there's a heat limit. There is a sensor in there that tells it when to shut off. Since then, I've just taken a regular house fan, I've put it on the end here, and I've blown up air on it, and it has run just fine. Of course, we're not in the 90-degree days here yet in Michigan, but it's been running just fine. I'm going to get some better fans, try to figure out how to keep that motor nice and cool. The other probably the biggest reason I got this particular motor, is it will run anywhere from 100 to 3,800 RPM. And you can control that with a little dial over here on the side, and you can just pick your RPM. You don't have to worry, because that's really the biggest thing with these motors or with the build, is you got to adjust everything to the build to the RPM of the motor. Your pulleys and everything are dependent upon that. But now I'm free to use whatever pulleys I want, whatever diameter I want, whatever belt I want. Well, to within a limit. This is not the right belt for this. This is a temporary making it run until I get the right belt. But yeah, so I'm free of that. And I'm going to get into that in a minute when I explain the pulley math. The other nice thing, there is an on-off switch, and it is a sewing machine motor, so it's meant to start-stop. So you can start it and stop it as you see fit. I've been running it a week and a half now, non-stop. And I've just been adding all kinds of barrels to it. And as you can see, I've got quite a bit of weight on there, and it's running just fine. It doesn't slow down at all. So with the motor decided, the second thing you're gonna wanna know before you start your build is you're gonna wanna know what pulleys you need. The pillow blocks, the shafts, everything, those are all set. But you're going to want to know what pulleys you're going to need. So let's get into the math on that so you can judge based on the motor speed what type of pulley you need. Okay, so to calculate your pulley diameters that you need, which is going to be part of your parts list. Obviously, if you're building the way I am, you can just use the parts list I have. But I'm going to include, like I said, this is going to be a complete build. So it'll be for anybody that, you know, might have motors laying around or want different motors, etc. But you always start with a couple of givens. That being the motor. If you have a motor already, you're going to start with the motor's RPM, and then you're also going to have the givens of the barrel that you're going to be turning, because a barrel counts as a pulley. And you're going to have the speed it wants to turn at, and you're probably going to want to roll if you're looking to rough tumble, at least rough tumble rocks. It's going to be a RPM of 45. I've found that anywhere between 40 to 50 is a good little number. I think I know the Chicago Electrics and Lortone 33B with a 3-pound barrel, excuse me. So if you're using a 3-pound barrel, the diameter is going to be 4.5, and then I'm just using a 1/2 inch diameter shaft. So I'm using the Pulley calculator. There's a lot of calculators out there, and they're going to measure different things. A lot of them calculate belt length and torque, but I like this one because it gets right to the point. It's really everything that we need. So I've set it up the same way that you would enter it under the calculator here. So if you have a fixed RPM motor, what you're going to want to start with is you're going to want to enter these, start with these numbers, the givens on the barrels, and you're going to want to calculate the driven shaft RPM that you're trying to achieve. So with a speed of 45 or 4.5, speed of 45, and then you just hit OK, and it's going to give you an RPM of 405. You come over here, and you're going to have to run through the whole calculator again. So your driven shaft RPM is going to be 405 RPM. Well, then you just X all that out, and now you have 1750, and then RPM of 405. Now, for pulleys, this is where you can start to choose. You can start to choose the pulley that's attached to your motor if you have that option, and then you have the amount of, or the pulley that you want to attach to your shaft, and those can be anything you choose. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you want a 2-inch diameter motor or pulley on there. So 2, and then you just calculate for the missing variable. According to this, you would need a 0.46 diameter. So clearly that's not realistic. Let's try this at 12. And let's X that out. Okay. So if we change that to 12, you have a 2.78, or basically 2 3/4 inch diameter pulley that goes on there. So that'll give you an idea of how you calculate that out if you have a fixed RPM motor. If you have what I've suggested, that variable speed or flexible RPM motor, then your calculation is going to be all the same over here. I mean, you still have the givens of the barrel speed and the shaft diameter, and then the RPM, which is going to be 405 again. And then, so that comes over here to 405. And then I picked up I have a 1 3/4 inch on there right now. I should have gotten a larger diameter pulley for the driven shaft, but well, it's too late now. And then the pulley was 5 inches, I believe, on the motor, and that was fixed on there, so I didn't really have a choice. So then now I can figure out what I need for the motor RPM, and that's going to be a 5. That's fixed, and then so I can change the, well, it's giving me a weird number, but I can change my motor's RPM to whatever I would like it to be, but right now it's a really low speed it can run at. I'm actually thinking I should probably go up to a 2.5. 2.5. So let's say I were to get a new pulley on there. That'd be 2.5. That stays the same. This will change, and that would give me a 202 speed. So I can adjust it either way. I can bump it up, slow it down a little bit. I think right now I'm actually running it at 300 RPM and it's coming out okay. And something to note real quick, something I took me a little while to figure out, is if you're on your pulleys, you're going to measure the pulley speed by finding the center of the shaft and drawing a radius out, and that rotation, the number of times it goes around in a minute, is going to be your speed. So it doesn't really matter what size pulley that is, because it's going to turn around. This is going to turn, this section of the pulley turns at the same speed as this section of the pulley as it does at the top. Putting a 1/2 inch shaft in the middle and then putting your 2-inch pulley on the outside, if your shaft is turning at 45 RPM, your pulley is going to turn at 45 RPM and vice versa. So that's why I have the 2 different lengths or 2 different diameters on the same shaft, which is why I have the diameter shaft on one at half, because that's the center, and then that would be the pulley mounted on the top going to the motor. So I hope this helps. I know it's something that took me a minute to understand with this, and let's get into the actual build. So this project is pretty simple on wood. I started with some pallets, just breaking down the pallets so I could use the runners as the 2x4s and then the slats. Just a couple of pieces of plywood at 24x40 for the tops and bottoms. And yeah, it's pretty simple. Then the uprights are just going to be 2x4s, 4 of them cut to 20 inches. I'm sorry, that's the corner pieces. Then the uprights are going to be the same length, just 1x4s. And attaching the corners, pretty straightforward. You already have the dimension on the tops and bottoms, and yeah, just attach them on the corner, make sure they're square, and everything's all set. I kind of put the top on here. I actually screwed the legs or the corners on, and then put the top on, but my top here is 1.5 inches bigger in each direction, but it's because I'm doing it in a different build. That's why they look different on my build, but this is for me. If you're just doing the single unit, just make the top and the bottom the same size. And then I just drilled some pocket holes in the uprights, the 1x4s. So total materials for this are pretty simple. 1 sheet of 1/2 inch plywood, 4 20-inch 2x4s, and 2 20-inch 1x4s, and you'll get by on it. And then I put pocket holes in there. If you're accurate trying to just drill up from through the bottom and the top, you don't need the pocket holes. You can just do it that way. Once the holes are drilled, I just attached the pillow blocks. It's a lot easier to do it while they're still separate before attaching to the entire unit. Just make sure as you go that you get there's a part that sticks out a little more. The bearing sticks out a little more on one side of the pillow block than the other. Make sure they're all pointed the same direction, and at the end of the video you'll see why that's important as I put the collar shafts on, or shaft collars, or whatever they're called. I just ran bolts through. I'm going to give you the dimensions here in a second. And just as you tighten this down, make sure they are the same height from the bottom. That's kind of important. Otherwise, you'll create a bit of a lean on your shafts, and your barrels will want to drift to one end or the other, which is good if you want to create that drift, but bad if you don't. It really, and if you follow if you're any kind of a machinist or close on getting the put together, which clearly I am not because I'm fumbling around here, but you can get these pretty much spot on. Make sure also as you tighten these down, or before you tighten them down, that you've set them up so that they will face opposite directions. If you follow my measurements here in a few seconds, there's going to be an offset. They're not square, or they're not centered on the uprights. So you're going to want to make sure that one group is pointed to the left and one to the right. And again, at the end, as you get through, I'll show you why that's important once those collar shafts are on. Yeah, and I just a little hand tightening there just to make sure they're nice and solid and won't drift on me or come loose. The other nice thing about these pillow blocks too is the bearings are adjustable as an angle, so they're pretty forgiving. So even if you're off a little bit up and down, the bearing or the pillow block will adjust, the bearing will move, and you can be off a little bit and still get a good tumble. And once you have it all together, it's a good time to grease it now. Like if you're like me and you have a grease gun with a stiff end on it, it's a lot easier to do it now. I wouldn't have been able to get at the nozzles. I'm not sure what those are called. Yeah, I couldn't have gotten at the nozzles once the uprights were on. Just one squeeze of the grease gun is all it takes, and it'll fill them up. And here's the dimensions: 3 inches. Everything's measured from the bottom, so 3 to 7 inches. And yeah, you can pause it as needed to get the dimensions. 3/8 inch holes for the bolts. I put pluses in there to show you where they are, and that's the length and size of the bolt that I used. Attaching the uprights, I'm showing it here before I put the top on. There was a lot of backing up and doing over as I went, and attaching the uprights pretty simple and straightforward. You just run the screws down. If you have the pocket holes, I mean, you can line it up. I'll give you the dimensions on where they fit or where I put the uprights here in a second. You can adjust those farther on the measurements, deeper into the unit. There was plenty of room with this motor for the width. I just didn't want to go too narrow on the depth of the unit because I was afraid of tipping over. So I kept it nice and wide, and then I'm also going to be using the top as my countertop to work with my logs and change barrels, etc. So, and then the uprights, I got them wrong the first time, but there's the dimensions for it. Again, hit pause as you're needed if you want to get those dimensions. So some work happened off camera, and I just thought I'd catch you up on it. I ran into a few snags, and I called my dad and asked him for some help, and he's not a very photogenic kind of guy, so we did the work, and then I'm catching up on it now. Obviously, we put the rolled shafts in. These I must have picked up hot rolled by accident instead of cold rolled. Make sure you get cold rolled shafts. These didn't quite fit inside the bearings, and we ended up having to hook them up. We put the shafts inside the drill and ran the drill and a piece of sandpaper down the shafts to get them smooth enough to fit inside the pillow blocks, inside the bearings. Make sure you get the cold rolled, and otherwise, like in the previous tumbler we built, they went in just smooth as silk. So yeah, definitely the cold rolled. One of the pillow blocks, this one here, had a bit of a burr inside the well, where they put in the set screws, and it caused quite a bit of snag on this one. It was kind of a pain in the rear to put on this shaft. So I've had 12 of these pillow blocks now from this company, and this is the only one that's had a burr in it. So, you know, I can't say they're perfect or they're going to be perfect, but yeah, at least they were 11 out of 12 were good shape. For mounting the motor, what I've done is, fortunately for me, this lines up here. The pulley lines up with the end of the board, so I was able to use this line. I drew a line straight across. I got my base measurement. I measured the bottom of the unit. It was 8 5/16 long. So I simply measured from that line over to, made a new line, squared it off, and then these 4 legs on the back, I'm calling them legs, they line up with that line. So I just squared it off, and that will keep the motor in line and everything nice and lined up for when it comes time to put the pulley on or belt on. And then the pulley, the nice thing about this motor, as long as I'm here, it has an adjustment on it. So if your belt needs, you know, a little tightening as it runs, then you're going to be able to get that out of there. I've got the belt on, it's connected. Obviously this is not an ideal solution. This is not an A-groove pulley. And this is designed for the power strip type belt. But over here you can see it's just not going to seat in there very well. And you can hear it when I fire up, but it's going to slip a little bit. There's a little bit of slippage. So this isn't a long-term solution, but as far as getting this video out, this is what I'm going to go with, because I don't want to kill a couple more days and delay this project getting to you guys a little longer. When I do find a solution for either getting a round belt or replacing this pulley or that pulley, then I will let you know. You can look down in the comments down below the motor, and I will give you the instructions on what I did to make this adjustment so that the belt or pulleys match and gel well together. Right now I'm running at 200 to 300 RPM, so I'll probably let it run overnight with the system as is, or at least until I can get the proper situation. But yeah, when I figure that out, look down in the comments down below if I haven't told you by the end of the video. While I was monkeying with it, trying to come up with ideas to keep the hammer pushed up, I ended up long story short, I ended up dropping a 16 penny into there, and now when I turn it on, I can adjust the RPM here. It'll go up, let me try to get up where my thumb isn't in the way. Okay, so you can adjust the RPM up and down in units of 100. Right now, do the pulley sizes, I need it at 200, and then, yeah, I can fire it up. It'll run for a minute, and then you'll see that error message. So, the error message, I'm assuming, isn't awful, because it is running, everything's good. The only thing, when I read the instruction manual, it said there was a 9-pin connection that isn't good, and I checked that, and it is good. So I'm feeling pretty confident about this, but yeah. So there it is spinning, and I can shut it off by dropping it down. The only thing I do want to note is that this is running, and then you shut off this main power switch here. It will continue to run for a couple of seconds. It doesn't kill the power to the unit immediately, so kind of a poor safety design. So if something goes wrong and you're trying to get in a pinch and shut it off quick, this isn't going to do the trick. So as I'm finalizing this video, I realized I never showed how I attach the pulleys. So sorry for the explanation and not showing, but it's pretty simple, straightforward. I started with this pulley here when I was putting it together. I got it on the shaft, flush with the end, and then just obviously tighten down the set screw there. Let's see, yeah, just tighten down the set screw. I put the shaft collars on before I put the pulleys on. I like these because they just make sure these set screws have a tendency to slip. At least they did on my previous unit. So rather than risk them slipping, I just put these shaft collars, I think they're called, collar shafts, something like that. And I just put them on there to make sure and I put them on both ends just to make sure that the shaft doesn't slide back and forth. It stays nice and secure. And for the extra, I think $8 they cost, it was definitely worth it. For this end, once again, I went to the end of the shaft, and then I put the pulley flush, and then below, okay, I'm interrupting myself on my thoughts. Yeah, I set this flush with the end, tightened it down. I then connected the belt all the way around the other 4 pulleys, and I left them loose. I didn't tighten them down. I fired up the unit and just kind of let them self-correct, and then I went through and I tightened down, the set screws. So once it was in place, and then of course now as it runs, it's nice and straight. The belt is obviously losing some material. I use the power strip belt. I don't think I've mentioned that anywhere else, but it's good stuff. It's okay. I mean, it's good to get the unit started, but this is not a permanent solution. You can hear it creaking. So it has its own noise. It makes it not quite as quiet. I mean, tumbling rocks in PVC is pretty much like a rock concert anyway, but so yeah, but it'll get you there. So if you don't mind spending a little extra money, it'll hold for a while. I've been running it for a couple weeks, and I think on the other unit I ran it for a long time. This 2x I had to cut down a little bit. You can see where I marked out the length and stuff, but I had to cut that back a little bit so I could get the belt on around the pulleys. And, oh, that was the other thing. The double pulleys aren't necessary. I put them on because I am going to advance this a little more. I'm going to put this actually over my old tumbler, which is sitting over there next to the gas can. And I'm going to put this whole unit, I'm going to cut a hole through here so I can drop the belt down to that unit. And then I have the Frankenstein. I think you may have seen that in a previous video where I merged together two old Chicago electrics onto one piece of plywood, basically. And I'm going to run that up, and I'm going to set that up here on top. So I'm going to cut a hole through here. So that's why I have the double pulleys on, is so I can link in more units to this. And you don't need the double pulleys if you're going to be building your own, just this, you just want the two-tier system. So just get single pulleys over here. I will put both types of pulleys down below in the description, of course, and you just get the ones that you need for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And otherwise, yeah, it's been running great. My DIY barrels, like I said, I'm going to redo those because they're not working the way that I'd like them to. They're starting to leak, and I'm having other issues, and I know how to correct that now, and yeah. So that's how you get the pulleys on there. Start here, go down to the other end, put the on, and then just let the others slide adjust. Something else I should point out real quick is I had set up rollers to prevent the barrels from rubbing against the wood. The first one I used just a hardware store, dollars. These are the shower door rollers. You may have seen me use these on previous videos, and just with an L bracket and some screws to fit. Nothing complicated, nothing really crazy there. That works fine, except it's creating a little bit, let's see if you can see it there, a little bit of a groove in the barrel. And on the PVC barrel, I was actually wearing a hole through the PVC caps. So the rubber barrel is doing just fine, but I think this plastic is just a little too hard. And what I've done up here is you may have seen me use these bearings on a different, I think I used them on my Harbor Freight video. But I just simply took those bearings and used the same L bracket, the same screw, and put those bearings on there. And I think those cost like $8 or $10 for more than enough of these. So this is actually working out much better. It's much smoother. They're designed to run like this forever, and they're pre-greased. So if you have the extra coin, I would recommend just picking up these, and I'll put those in the description down below. Otherwise, you can pick these up at the hardware store. I think you can get like a 2 or a 4 pack for a couple bucks. So something else of quick note, I said I was trying to figure out what to do to get the motor up, and this is actually what I've come up with for now. I'm just a bungee cord, and I just hook it on a screw. Not a permanent fix, but it does the trick right now. All right, so I hope that's done it for you. I hope you got all your questions answered. If not, let me know in the comments down below, or even let me know what you think. I'd appreciate it. I know there's a couple of good ideas that came out of this from the previous video I had of building these. People leaving comments, and I've used those ideas in this build. So it's particularly the sewing machine motor. And then down below there is a super thanks button. This project ran a little bit over budget. This is the second motor I ended up getting for this project, and yeah, that would help fund the next project and keep me moving forward if you feel inclined. Otherwise, I'm just happy to make these videos, and anything I can do to help other people, that's really my objective. So yeah, and I have a bunch more projects coming out. Like I said, I got the PVC DIY barrel. I'm going to redo those. I've got there's a motor, a little motor I want to buy, and I guess there's like 5 or 6 different machines you can build with that. Lapidary machines, and yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff I want to do. So yeah, stick around and subscribe if you like this sort of DIY stuff and pretty rocks, because that's what I do. And yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.